Karnataka. Now we turn our attention back to the Supreme Court hearing of the application that's been filed on the part of the Delhi Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Manish Sisodia, who's challenged the grounds of his arrest on the part of the CBI. This hearing was delayed by almost an hour. It was supposed to take place at 3:50. There was another matter that held up the Supreme Court, and now, of course, the hearing has begun. Let me go across to Madhav Das Gopal Krishnan, who will give us some more details on this. And just to give our viewers a bit of a background, because at the time that this plea was admitted, the Supreme Court did, in fact, had asked the lawyers of Sisodia as to why, under Section 482 of the CRPC, they had not approached the requisite High Court for relief. The defense, Madhav, that came from Sisodia's side is that in the Pawan Khera case, the Supreme Court had agreed to list the matter urgently. The Supreme Court also said that that specific matter pertained to the clubbing of FIRs that have been filed against Mr. Khera in different parts of the country. And now, of course, it remains to be seen how the hearing proceeds now that it's begun in the Supreme Court.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, very, very important that what is being cited over here is, the entire judgment as far as Vinod Dua is concerned. Singhvi says, your lordships have 32 judgments. This one falls under the remit of Vinod Dua. The Chief Justice then responds saying that Vinod Dua was in a different context. Singhvi says, how is it being non-cooperative or evasive when I appeared, when I was called? If someone is not willing to say something you want to hear, that is no ground for remand. I cooperated whenever I was called. The most important point, though, is what the Chief Justice says to Singhvi before this hearing starts. He says, why should we even entertain this? You have a full remedy open. Why don't you move the Delhi High Court? To which these responses come in from Abhishek Manu Singhvi. So the larger question is this, that when it comes to matters pertaining to freedom of speech, yes, as several panelists have also pointed out in the channel earlier, yes, the Supreme Court has directly intervened and protected the rights of those individuals, where it has been very clearly proved that the constitutional rights which were being exercised were at some level or the other sought to be threatened or reduced by actions of various aspects, whether it's the state or otherwise, and those are the cases in which courts have intervened in the past. In this case, will Abhishek Manu Singhvi be able to make a persuasive case for such a matter, because the charges that we are looking at are charges which the Enforcement Directorate, which is CBI in the current instance, the agency that has in fact arrested Manish Sisodia, they are talking about a completely different matter, because it is an allegation of wrongdoing as the excise minister, and in fact tweaks that were made to the excise policy which were meant to benefit certain groups is the allegation that Mr. Sisodia faces. At least that's what the CBI believes at this point of time. Will Mr. Singhvi be able to prove otherwise in the Supreme Court is going to be something that we're going to be watching out for very closely. Siddharth.
Yes, let me in fact take this across to Nilashish as well, who's been monitoring the developments in the Supreme Court. Aishwarya as well as Bhavtosh are also with us as we speak. Nilashish, coming to you first, how much is the Supreme Court likely to go into the merits of the allegations against Mr. Sisodia, or is it more the grounds of his arrest as well as the procedures adopted by the CBI that are under scrutiny right now?
Siddharth, primarily the question before the CJI's bench here is the domain of Manish Sisodia's plea, which challenges the arrest, the procedures. What Abhishek Manu Singhvi, in fact, at this point is saying is that I have been called twice, I have attended, and there is no ground for remand. Merits of this case is not something that the court will look into in its entirety, but the manner in which he was arrested. Now, Justice Narasimha on the bench is now saying, just because any incident happened in Delhi doesn't mean you have to come running here directly. There are other fora, and there is a set hierarchy. Of course, the court is referring and indicating that while we do have the powers, inherent powers, to take up this matter, there is also the Delhi High Court which you could have approached under 482, which also has inherent powers. There's a hierarchy of courts, and the question is, why was there a necessity for for Manish Sisodia's team to reach the Supreme Court directly? Why could they not go to the High Court? Now, what is being said by Abhishek Manu Singhvi as we speak is that the allegation is for multi-level excise policy. Everyone has approved it. Why am I the only exception in this case? So alluding to a similar argument from yesterday that the LG had also approved this particular policy. I am being targeted exceptionally. What are these circumstances? Is what Abhishek Manu Singhvi is asking. Of course, the question that is being raised here by Abhishek Manu Singhvi, which is a very, very native argument that he always places is that of the triple test of flight risk, not attending summons, and criminal inference. So Abhishek Manu Singhvi says that there is a triple test with regard to an arrest, and if I am not following this triple test, I could be taken into custody. But none of these three aspects of the test, none of these three facets of the test are met with Manish Sisodia, saying that neither am I a flight risk, neither am I not attending summons, and neither is there any criminal interference in the investigation. Now, of course, Abhishek Manu Singhvi continues to argue in this case, saying that the judgment of Vinod Dua, as Madhav, our colleague, was also saying earlier, was alluding to earlier, that the Vinod Dua judgment is something that is of importance as far as Manish Sisodia's legal team is concerned. They are pressing and taking the court through the Vinod Dua judgment in this case. Now, Abhishek Manu Singhvi has also stated that he was called twice, he attended, and this is something that needs to be looked into, because the punishment of the offences that Manish Sisodia has been accused of does not increase a 7-year time span. The maximum punishment in the offences that Manish Sisodia is accused of is 7 years. So in that case, there is no need for arrest in this situation in this manner. That is what Abhishek Manu Singhvi is saying. That is the argument that is being placed before the court by Abhishek Manu Singhvi. But the question as of now still remains whether or not the legal team of Manish Sisodia could have approached the Delhi High Court. These are the contours of the arguments as of now. But what is being stated here again is that if someone is not willing to say something you want to hear, that is no ground for remand. Let's not forget, this is what we were talking about earlier as well, Siddharth. This is the basic aspect of the argument that will be put forward by Abhishek Manu Singhvi for Manish Sisodia, wherein they will say that I am cooperating with investigation. Just because you say that I am not saying what you want to hear me say, that does not mean I am not cooperating. However, this will be a very interesting aspect, Siddharth, because the court yesterday, in its order, while allowing custodial interrogation of Manish Sisodia, stated that yes, they took that point, that yes, you have the right to not confess and cooperate at the same time, but if you are not answering, in the interest of effective investigation, you must provide some legitimate and genuine answers. So will the Supreme Court take this up, and whether this argument holds water is something that we'll have to wait and watch.
In fact, Nilashish, while you were, of course, taking through the proceedings in court, there's been an important update specifically with regards to what Justice Narasimha has said, where he claims that just because any incident happened in Delhi, it doesn't mean you have to come running here directly, here meaning the Supreme Court. There are other forums. There is a set hierarchy. So clearly the allusion here is to section 482 of the CRPC, which basically allows the petitioner in a particular case to approach the High Court. That's the hierarchy that he's referring to. And the Chief Justice of India, Mr. Chandrachud, also says there's a case involving the PC Act, which is the Prevention of Corruption Act. We are of the view that we should not interfere. Of course, the hearing is continuing, Ilashish, but nevertheless, the Supreme Court, at least at this stage of the hearing, appears to not be very inclined towards interfering directly. They're in fact sticking to what they had said earlier to the petitioners, saying that you ought to approach the High Court, at least at this stage of the proceedings.
Absolutely, Siddharth. As we were discussing, as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, they're questioning the hierarchy, questioning the direct move to the Supreme Court when there is an alternative available in terms of the High Court. It is the same powers that the High Court also has, and that would mean that if there is something untoward as far as Sisodia is concerned from the High Court, something that is not in their favor, they can approach the Supreme Court after that. Secondly, as you said, what the CJI is indicating to at this point is that this is involving the Prevention of Corruption Act, and that we are of the view that we should not interfere at this stage. Now, this is what is the crux of the argument. This is the crux of the case, because as was being referred to earlier, Siddharth, the lower court, the special CBI court yesterday took note of these arguments, and they did allow custodial interrogation in the interest of fair and just investigation into this case. Now, when the CBI, when the investigating agency is actually looking into the case, when they're investigating the case, is there enough water in Manish Sisodia's case? Does it hold enough water to actually persuade the Supreme Court to interfere with the investigating agency's probe is something that is very, very interesting to note, because is the arrest so arbitrary that the Supreme Court will interfere at this stage and say that no, Manish Sisodia should not be interrogated in custody at this point. Now that is what Manish Sisodia has to prove and persuade the Supreme Court of. But as of now, the indication is, and the question that is coming in, is whether there is enough, there are enough grounds to show that the arrest was so arbitrary that the remand in itself must be cancelled. So the hearing is on as we speak, and the CJI to Abhishek Manu Singhvi is saying that we are here anyway. You first.
Yes, very important point that Nilashish coming in from the Chief Justice to Singhvi, where he says, see, we are here anyways. You first go to the High Court. So that's very, very significant coming in over here, Nilashish. Let me take that question across to Bhavtosh, who's also joining us. Bhavtosh, very, very important. And we've seen this in many a case where the Supreme Court has told the appellants to go to the High Court first, because just as in this case, where very clearly the custody was granted by the level of the trial court or the district court, and thereafter they have approached Supreme Court. Here you have the Chief Justice who's indicating that they are inclined to interfere at this stage. It is dismissed. Big breaking news there. Bhavtosh, the case has been dismissed. No relief coming in for Manish Sisodia just yet.
Yes, Madhav, our legal editor Harish has said that it's a big setback for Manish Sisodia. The fact that the Supreme Court has refused to give him any kind of relief, asking him to go to the High Court, which means that at least his plea asking that the FIR should be quashed and that he should be released on bail has been rejected by the Supreme Court. He has the option to appeal to the High Court tomorrow. But remember, his custodial remand will be getting over on Saturday. So it's a setback not only for Manish Sisodia, but also for Aam Aadmi Party, which has always maintained that this is trumped up charges that have been put by the CBI on the
Okay, Harish is joining us on the phone line now. Bhavtosh, let me quickly connect to